The thrilling story at the gold mine. The story that I'm gonna tell you today was what my grandfather had really been through when he was young. My grandfather is at his very old age, but he is still healthy and has a very clear mind. He has been experienced a lot. Now he needs to get close to the family. Whenever I came to visit him, he has narrated his old stories, which are still engraved deeply to his heart under his smoky breath with his cigarette. My grandfather was from the West, born and raised. That was a very tough time back then with hunger. So the young man had decided to follow some other migrants to go the eastern north to find an opportunity to make a living. The group of migrants had kept walking day to day while thinking about a better life at a better place. But the journey to the dreamland was not easy. It was too far for them to know exactly how far they had to take. A couples of years, probably. People went on, someone gave up, someone passed away, then they finally made it to step in the dreamland, but then they realized that was not like how they used to think. My grandfather was not full of energy and lively anymore. He had nothing but a willingness to explore new things. One day, he saw an announcement hung in the wall while he was walking on the street. People were gathering around to see the announcement. That was a job needed from C Group, in this eastern north. There were numerous of gold mines. They needed workers to work at the gold mine. That was really a very attractive high-paid opportunity, 20 vacancies, which preferred tall, young and strong man. People were buzzing with the job. This is really cool, free food and accommodation, $30 a month. I'm gonna apply this. Count me in. My grandfather was convinced overwhelmingly. He had come to apply for the job and got in since he was a strong man. Then he and the others who got the offers went to the gold mine by a carriage. He was accompanied with 4 others in the carriage. My grandfather had noticed there was a silent man who bore an angry, unfriendly face, got a beard and bushy eyebrow. He just faced down cold-bloodedly. His name is Jacob. Jacob is the protagonist of this story. The carriage drove them towards the mountains, into the jungle. Suddenly one of them realized something and shouted loudly, "Where the heck are you taking us to? We was recruited by C Group, but this way is to go to another mine." He started to startle and demanded to stop the carriage. He yelled too loud so that everyone in the carriage could hear, but the driver just whipped up the horses and ignored him. The carriage was moving faster and faster. People started to be scared out. The man continued, "What wrong? Stop, please." He kept yelling all the way until the carriage leapt to a small route surrounded by overgrown bushes and rocky areas. Jacob seemed to be annoyed by that man at that point. He broke his silence. "Hey, could you stop yelling? Does that matter which group are you gonna work for? As long you have your salary, doesn't it? The cobbler should stick to his last. If they really take us to that gold mine, we are all gonna die. Don't think we can take home money," the man growled and told us. He seemed so serious, but Jacob didn't seem care. He answered lightly, "So tell me what the hell in there?" Jacob thought there nothing could scare him out there. That was just a gold mine. Gold mines were all the same. He just tried to mind his business and he would be paid off with money after finishing his job. The man didn't give up. He told us surely, "You guys must be new here. You don't know nothing about what happened here. I have heard a story about this gold mine. A home to demons that consume our souls. There are 10 ways in but only 2 ways out. Such a horrified place." Jacob and the rest of them were confused. Jacob primed up his mouth. "Stop talking bullshit. I don't get it. Let make it clear. That wasn't clear enough for you all. There are demons in this mine. There was 2 out of 10 able to make it alive home. And they weren't back in one piece, you know. Some became cripples. Some became psychopaths. Honestly, there are so many gold there, but the gold is guarding by demons. Go there means nothing but finding death," he explained. The carriage had stopped right after the man finished the story. Get off, all of you. Here you are. The driver asked them. To be frank, the driver was just a worker like them. He just brought the workers to the mine. He had to report to the two guards who were standing from afar. They were all bringing guns on their shoulders, angrily asked, "What happened on the way here?" The driver told them something. They had been in charge of welcome us here. The loud man earlier looked at them with a fake smile. He respectfully clasped. "Pardon, sir, I'm not feeling well. I think I'm unable to work here. Could you allow me to get home, please?" "Well, you are not feeling well? Let me help you to feel better." One of them pulled the gun out with a smirk. He used the butt of the gun to hit the loud man strongly in the head suddenly. His nose had been broken. Some of his teeth felt too. Such a pain in the ass. His blood was over half of his face. The newcomers were all speechless and immobilized. Only Jacob could make a move toward the hit man. "What do you think you are doing?" Jacob had stood up for a stranger who he just met. "Who the fuck are you? Mind your own business." The hit man threatened him. The hit man tended to teach Jacob a lesson. He had his gun drawn. Jacob got a quick eye. He dodged the hit man's gun smash competently. The other guard came to attack Jacob from behind. Jacob had turned his head back. With his one hand, he easily caught the gun and punched the second hitman by his other hand. That was a really strong punch. The hitman's nose had been bleeding, gave a grimace of pain. My grandfather had another look to Jacob. At first he thought Jacob was a short-tempered and cool-blooded guy. But at that moment, Jacob had become a true hero. The two hit men had continued to attack Jacob. But Jacob quickly turned the table around. He hit them like a champ. In a blink of an eye, Jacob had knocked the two hit men out. The loud man earlier worriedly came to him. "Don't you think you are becoming a hero now? You're getting us more troubles." Suddenly, there were a group of people came from nowhere. The leader looked like a crook with his gray hair. He raised his voice. "What happened here?" That was the owner of this mine. His name is Oliver. He could fathom the atmosphere instantly. He gave a slightly smile and chimed in. "Listen. Welcome all of you. You are all come here to work. So why don't just work and you got your paycheck? I'll pay you more if you done it well. But if you come here to make a scene, you gotta pay off." His face expressions made the others better be careful. He was sorta mass killer, able to do anything for his business. My grandfather and the other newcomers were under Jacob's lead at that time. Jacob drowned to silence, and didn't move since the loud man had hold a hand to stop Jacob from stupid thing he might done. The loud man spoke up. "For sure, boss, we will pull our weight." After then, the newcomer had been arranged to stay in dark shelters. There was my grandfather, Jacob, the loud man who had been hit earlier, and a bald, tall man. He was Jacob's friend, named Lucas. They stayed in the same room. When there were only them left, the four of them had a chat. The loud man named Ethan. He was a local there, so he had been heard lots of stuff about this group. He told Jacob, "I know you just want to protect us, but we got in here already, so we should stay still, and absolutely shouldn't pick a quarrel with Oliver's people, or we gotta sacrifice our life." Jacob was not a child. He calmly replied, "Ethan, me and my friend came here to make a living. As long as they don't cross the line, I'll make sure I don't do anything stupid." That night, everyone fell in sleep easily after their long drive. Ethan had prayed before going to sleep. "God, I don't want to be loaded anymore. I just want to avoid to work at that mine. Please listen my words." My grandfather didn't care what was that inside the mine. What made Ethan so afraid of? He just was like Jacob. Hoped to make some money and saved to build a house, so that he didn't have to move from place to place anymore. The next morning, they had been awakened very early. They had been served some rice gruel with cabbage, then hurriedly been taken to a stream. Each of them had been received a colander to work. dusk and sandy soil after digging from the mine had been bring to the stream to washed up and refined to get gold. They gotta wash up carefully to get the real gold. There was a few horrible screams from the mine while they were working, then they saw some men was taking out by stretchers. Ethan looked towards them worriedly. They must saw ghost and have been killed. Replacements must be bring into the mine shortly. Let guess who are gonna be next. Among those men who were taking from the mine, they were all dead or nearly dead. Only one seemed alive, but he consecutively shouted to tears, "Demon, demon." Then, Mr. Oliver came to the stream with some gunmen and chose the next group to work inside the mine. "Gentlemen, this is one in your lifetime chance. If you work inside the mine, you will be paid double." Then he pointed toward us, me, Jacob, Ethan and Lucas, the bald. When hearing that, Ethan had been too frightened to move. He was shaking his whole body, and fell into the stream. But that was law, willing or not, they had to comply with it. The four of them were taken to the mine by those gunmen. The guns were up close to them. If there was any resistances, they would been shoot. At the gate to the mine, those gunmen didn't step in, but they still did gun up and ready to shoot if there was anyone wanted to run out. Jacob still kept his cool. He led the group to the mine. Ethan was shivering, clung to Jacob. "Help me, protect me, please." Jacob group stepped further to the mine. Hearing Ethan shivers, my grandfather got a bit worried, but there have been nothing since they stepped in. They had self-divided their work and started to dig the rocky soils by shovels to bring out for gold refinery. Every time they shoveled rocky soils, dust had rose up to their noses and make them hard to breathe. They had to take a deep inhale to got some air. Their throats were becoming so hot and dried up. While digging, my grandfather had heard Ethan screamed. He looked towards him. Ethan was working near Lucas, and he had looked to Lucas with a weirdly horrible face like he were facing something scary. My grandfather came toward them to check out. Ethan had sit down and screamed out loud. Lucas had his back toward my grandfather. Suddenly, Lucas turned his head back. He had turned to a demon with a very scary face. His head was like a skull covered by blood horrifically. My grandfather held his shovel tightly, his back on the rocky wall, stared to what was happening in front of him. Lucas, the demon, had used his shovel to hit Ethan badly. The demon stabbed Ethan's head with his shovel multiple times. Ethan's blood and brain was all over the mining area, terrifically. My grandfather ran towards Jacob's area to tell him what happened. Jacob, Lucas was demonized. He stabbed Ethan to death. Jacob had faced to the wall, looked like he didn't catch my grandfather's words. Then Jacob turned around. My grandfather got more terrified since Jacob also became a demon. Swiftly, my grandfather had been stuck between the two demons. They shoveled up and tended to attack him. He tried to escape there and screamed aloud, since the two demons started to attack him. They chased him to the dead end of the mine. Nowhere else to hide. He thought if he would gonna be end up like Ethan. He tried to defend and dodged their attack. The demons hit the wall badly. The rocks fell out and hit him eventually. My grandfather felt like his face got burned. He got his head bleeding and blacked out right before the shovel crashed to his head. He still blurredly saw Jacob and Lucas stepped in front of his face until he had blacked out completely. He didn't know how long he had been blacked out. He had been awakened by someone. "Wake up! Wake up!" He opened his eyes and saw Jacob and Lucas in front of him. They were just human-like, not demon-like as earlier. "Are you okay? Wake up!" He got dizzy since his head had been hit by rocks. He didn't know what happened. "Jacob, what was all of this? You and Lucas?" Jacob helped my grandfather to stand up. My grandfather saw Ethan's death body laid in the corner. Jacob told him Ethan had been scared to death. Ethan had got no injuries as his remembrance. He looked really like scared to death. His eyeballs were rolled up and his mouth was still opening. What happened? What about those demons that I saw earlier? They killed Ethan. My grandfather asked after Jacob. Jacob explained, the dust in here is sorta poison. When we breath in, it makes us paranoid and see some terrified things such as demons, killers, but those just an illusion. So why Jacob and Lucas were all fine? My grandfather had been curious and asked after it. He had been explained that they had been trained kung fu, so they got a very strong mind. When Ethan had been panicked, they had applied their kung fu techniques to hold their breath and avoid the poison. As a result of that, Ethan had been scared to death and my grandfather got hit by a rock and blacked out. They brought Ethan's body out and buried him. Jacob also made him a grave. They have kept that as a secret from the mine's owner and continuing to work as normal 3 days after. At the 4th days, Jacob and Lucas had sneakily climbed to Mr. Oliver's roof. They had collected dust from the mine secretly and poured it down to Mr. Sand's room from the roof. My grandfather and them waited for the result from afar. A few moments later, they had heard a loudly scream and gun shoots from Mr. Oliver's room. They stole some pieces of gold from Mr. Oliver's room after then and ran away. After then, my grandfather had followed Jacob and Lucas from place to place. He had been through lots of thrilling events in his life, then they had settled in their own places. The gold mine that year was the event he unable to forget. If that was not Jacob there, he might not alive until now.